As the United States entered World War I in 1917, the government sought tools to control information, suppress dissent, and safeguard military secrets. In response to these concerns, Congress passed the Espionage Act, a piece of legislation that significantly curtailed civil liberties and had a profound impact on free speech during the war. This article examines the Espionage Act of 1917, its key provisions, enforcement, and its implications for the First Amendment rights of Americans during this tumultuous period. Origins and motivations. The Espionage Act of 1917 emerged from the anxieties surrounding the United States' entry into World War I. The government, led by President Woodrow Wilson, feared the spread of anti-war sentiment, espionage, and sabotage. The act was crafted to provide the government with tools to suppress dissent, punish perceived disloyalty, and maintain public morale. Key provisions. Enacted on June 15, 1917. The Espionage Act consisted of three main provisions. The first section criminalized attempts to interfere with military operations, recruitment, and enlistment. The second section targeted the dissemination of false information with the intent to obstruct the war effort. The third section, known as the Sedition Act, criminalized statements deemed disloyal, profane, or abusive toward the U.S. government, the flag, or the military. Impact on free speech. The Espionage Act, particularly its provisions on speech and expression, had a chilling effect on free speech rights guaranteed by the First Amendment. The broad language of the act allowed for the prosecution of individuals who expressed dissenting views, criticized the government, or opposed the war effort. The act was used to stifle anti-war activists, socialist groups, and publications critical of the government's actions. Selective enforcement. The Espionage Act was selectively enforced, often targeting individuals and groups perceived as a threat to the wartime consensus. High-profile cases included the prosecution of Eugene V. Debs, a prominent socialist and anti-war advocate, and the targeting of publications like the Socialist Party's The Masses. Critics argued that the act was wielded as a tool to suppress political opposition rather than to genuinely protect national security. Legal challenges. The constitutionality of the Espionage Act faced legal challenges, with critics arguing that it violated the First Amendment's protection of free speech. In the landmark case of Schenck v. United States, the Supreme Court ruled that speech that poses a clear and present danger to the nation is not protected by the First Amendment, establishing a precedent that allowed for the restriction of certain forms of expression during wartime. Legacy and amendments. While the Espionage Act was initially intended as a wartime measure, its impact persisted beyond World War I. Amendments to the Act, such as the Sedition Act of 1918, further expanded its scope and extended its duration. The legacy of the Espionage Act influenced subsequent legislation and legal interpretations, shaping the government's ability to restrict free speech during times of national crisis. Reevaluation and critique. The Espionage Act of 1917 stands as a controversial chapter in American history, highlighting the tension between national security imperatives and the protection of individual rights during times of war. Its impact on free speech and the legal precedents established by its enforcement continue to provoke debate about the balance between national security and civil liberties in times of crisis.